everyone, it's Pat from Seattle Coffee here. I'm here with Jake today for a look at our new roaster, Black and White, or B&W coffee roasters, as they often stylize it. This is a roaster that's new to Seattle Coffee Gear from North Carolina, and we're really excited about their coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they have a few cafes down in North Carolina, and they've really been doing some big things in both honoring the traditions of coffee as we know it, and also progressing, with new lots, new experimental and funky processes. And they've got a really great team backing them up to make sure that their coffee is top notch, and we've been really loving it.
Yeah, it's really great stuff. They sort of talk primarily about a desire to make coffee more accessible, like specialty coffee more accessible, which is always something we're excited about. We like to try and elevate roasters and coffees that are going to be enjoyable for a wide range of people rather than try to lean hard into the kind of coffee snob mentality. That's something we avoid. So we like this idea of like trying to bring people roasts that are going to help them understand coffee better, and that's like dovetails perfectly with Black and White's catalog and like what they try to do. And we're really excited about the way that they message that in their roasts too, through like the way that they set their notes up and set their year-round blends up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've got a few of these brewed up, and let's start with the original because that's always a good place to start. This
Yeah.
is Black and White's the original, which is kind of a nod to uh, just coffee's roots in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
It's a washed Ethiopian coffee, and it's got some pretty classic notes like chocolate, citrus, a little bit of brightness, and honey sweetness. And it's for being a washed Ethiopian, it's really awesome. Like it's just really delicious. This could be my everyday cup easily.
Yeah, and they roast it a little bit darker. It's not a dark roast, it's definitely a medium, but they roast it a little bit darker to kind of temper some of the brightness that you might get in a typical Ethiopian, and some of the like more intense flavors, so that you get a nice introduction that's more balanced to this kind of flavor profile. Um, and then it's also washed coffee as well, which helps with that. And it's this in particular. It's coming from the Yurchefe region of Ethiopia, which is like the the cradle of some of the best coffee in the world. So
Exactly. It's
um,
not far off from where the original goats eating the coffee cherry
exactly.
story came from. Yeah.
Yep, and that's kind of the point, and that's kind of why it's called the original, because it's an ode to that sort of on their website they call it an ode to the origin of coffee. So yeah, it's definitely going to check out if you have not had an Ethiopian coffee before, and if you want some insight into sort of the one of the sort of standards of specialty coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. And then next up, I brewed up the traditional. I brewed this as a pour over this morning,
Hmm.
and the traditional is a little bit darker than most of the other black and white roasts. It's not dark, right? I would call it more in that specialty dark region.
Yeah, it's even darker. You just don't see a ton of specialty roasters do darker roasts. We do have some darker roasts from some of our roasting partners, but there's often an argument that dark roasted coffee just um, isn't really what specialty coffee is about. And they talk about with this coffee a goal to try to produce a really good dark roasted coffee that is going to still maintain the flavor profile of the beans and not lose that, which is tough to do. And I think that they accomplish it here pretty well. This roast has notes of like a dark chocolate and cherry, what you would expect from a darker roast without getting into too much of a roasty territory. So yeah, it's also a good way to there are there are beans that don't always make the cut to like single origin quality of harvest, but that can work really well in blends. especially in a darker roasted blend. And so this kind of gives them an opportunity to work with producers that maybe are having a hard time selling their crops to uh, roasters for single origin roasting, but that still want that specialty coffee pricing. So all around, it's a cool roast.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it does taste really good. It's as a darker roast. I don't particularly love darker roast compared to like a medium or light roast, but this one just does it really well.
Yeah,
Uh,
agreed.
as drip, I think is probably where it really would shine, because it is just that balanced, chocolatey cup that you can't really beat, and it's what you expect, but even a little better, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Yep, agreed.
And then I've got the natural here, and this was one I was excited about before we even brought them on. I've actually had this one before, and the natural is it's a pretty simple offering. It's like a Colombian natural
Mm-hmm.
blended with a washed Ethiopian. So you're not getting that real punch in the face natural like you do with some natural processed coffees, but it gives you that flavor profile that you're expecting from a natural processed coffee, including some more berries, that chocolate, while still remaining pretty well balanced, I think.
Right, exactly. It's got that fruit forward profile without losing the balance, and it's another example of a coffee that kind of introduces you to some of the things to expect from a naturally processed coffee, which is a coffee that has that dries with the cherry on the bean, so it's fermenting around the bean and imparting more of the cherry's flavor onto the bean instead of being hulled and washed as soon as it's harvested. So this coffee definitely gives you a good intro into that. Whereas if you were to just pick out a natural single origin, if you're not prepared for it, you might think it's kind of like you said, like kind of a punch in the face a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. So yeah, this is a really good introduction to that kind of coffee.
Yeah, yeah, and I also brewed this one on a pour over, and I think it's really good. But espresso, pour over, drip. I think this would be
Yeah,
great in any of those.
I think this is getting into that territory of you might want to try it as a pour over first to understand the flavor profile, and then
Hmm.
play with some of your parameters as you move to like a drip and an espresso. Don't expect to just like throw it in a super auto and get a perfect shot, but you can definitely get there. I think you're right with a wide range of brew methods.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then last up, I think is probably the most interesting everyday or year-round blend that they have available, and it's interesting for a reason. So this is the future, um, and the future is a kind of a project coffee. So you'll see it rotating as the year goes on. It's what they're roasting that is more of the more modern processes, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Like anaerobic, naturally processed being something that we just talked about, but something that is often on more of the modern specialty coffees. And this one's it's pretty complex for what it is. It's an Ethiopian coffee, and it is a Colombian coffee mixed, uh, blended, and it's quite tropical, I would say. Would you agree?
Yeah, yeah, definitely a distinct tropical note. Very juicy. The most complexity of the flavors out of all of the roasts that the year round roasts that they offer. Um, and it really does give you an interesting overview of forward thinking roasting and processing and production techniques all around. And I think it's really cool that they have a coffee like this, because even if it's not to everyone's taste, it's definitely it shows their range from being focused on accessibility and approachability all the way up to, but they're still very skilled roasters who are looking forward and trying to come up with experimental and interesting ideas. And the result is this pretty wildly different from their other blends, this coffee.
Yeah, it really
So
is. It really is. The anaerobic processing, I think, is one of the more interesting methods that we've seen. Basically, it's instead of fermenting in the sun, like with the natural processed coffee, or washing it and then drying it in the sun, it's actually done in somewhere that's oxygen free. That can be
yep.
done like a wide variety of ways. Vacuum sealing, etc. There's a lot of ways that the roasters out in the different countries prefer to do it, but it gives you it actually allows lactic acid to build up, and that gives you a really bright cup, and it
Yep.
and it really highlights those sweeter, acidic notes that you know it makes. I mean, it's very unique, and I really enjoy this cup because we don't get a lot of anaerobic coffees.
Not yet. I think you'll start to see them a lot, and that's kind of the point of this roast is um, anaerobic processing is actually, while it sounds complex, it's actually pretty simple to do, and it's pretty affordable to set up the equipment to do it. You can just do
Mhm.
it with like a tank and some valves, basically, like you're saying, just a release valve that where the oxygen is removed from the environment. Um, and then the coffee just sort of sits and ferments and those lactic acids build up like you're saying, and then there's a variety of ways to finish the processing. Some places remove the beans and then allow them to ferment further in an oxygen environment. Some wash them immediately right after that initial processing. But in any case, what you do tend to get is these coffees that have flavor profiles that are more akin to what you would expect from like high elevation, very expensive coffees, but you can sort of emulate some of those flavors from coffees that would traditionally be considered more suited for like blends or something like that. So it's very very cool, and it's great that they highlight that currently in this particular blend.
Yeah, yeah, and by currently, it switches every, I believe it's every 2 to 3 months based on availability.
Yep.
So as the year goes on, Black and White will be tasting and trying out all the coffees that they're getting in, picking the best ones for this blend. So if you buy one in April and you buy one in December, you might be getting a little bit different of a tasting profile, but either way, it's going to be really delicious and really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then they also have some great single origins as well. We didn't pick them out to highlight them because they'll go in and out of stock pretty quickly. So it's worth when if you go to order some, we definitely recommend picking up whatever there currently is available.
Mhm.
But just know that a coffee you see today may not be there in a couple of weeks because they do rotate pretty consistently.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And that's to be expected because I
Yep.
do believe that they purchase, they try and highlight smaller lots
Yep.
quite often and allowing the producer to really shine. So, yeah, you'll see them rotate out quite quickly. So get your hands on it when you can if you see one that you really are interested in.
Yeah, but otherwise, I think that kind of does it for us here. But very excited about this roaster. Definitely check them out as soon as you can. Grab a couple of these blends because they're really worth trying based on what you might like from what you've heard here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Pat, for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining me, Jake, and thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the like button on this video if you enjoyed it, and get subscribed for more coffee tasting videos. See ya.